All right. So yesterday we talked about the Azure storage, and we have also discussed about different storage types available for an end user. And are there any questions or anything before I start?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So question is, if somebody which is very new to this,
Mhm.
does he really need to watch your all three videos or the three sessions which you already completed?
Yeah. So the three it's a structured syllabus, and we are following. And the three, I would recommend to go through three of the videos so that we will get a broader perspective what we are trying to achieve. Right?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's. All right. So we discussed about the storage account yesterday, and also we created a storage account. So today I'll quickly walk through some of the options available at account level, and you see a lot of the left hand panel. There are a lot of options and features are available. So we'll quickly discuss some of the important ones that will be helpful for you in day out of in your job. Okay. And also we will see the first one. If you see in the overview section, where we have a resource group, location, and subscription, these all are good. But if you see, there is a tags section is there. We haven't added any tags to that. So now, when you think of a real-time scenario where you will be working on a multiple projects with a multiple subscription, so it's very important to segregate and differentiate the um, storage account that you are part of with different projects. For example, as I mentioned yesterday, you might be working in marketing, you might be working in finance, you might be working so on and so forth departments. So it's very easy to identify if you had a tags. Tags are very different, easy, like a key value kind of a thing. For example, uh, let's say I have added project marketing, right? So if somebody looks into that, okay, so this storage account belong to marketing, right? You can see it's the project marketing. I can add it. And also you can add as many as there is no restriction. And also you can add it's maybe the environment, right? So you can add environment as well, right? Maybe it's a development. So this is a development storage account, right? Something else for production, it's going to be a different one. So similar, these tags will help you in terms of differentiating amongst the projects, and also it help you in terms of when the the bill comes at the end of the month, it easily tells you which subscription costing you more, which subscription is costing you less. So those kind of benefits we have. So it's highly recommended when you create any subscription, you add these tags. Otherwise it's going to be problem at the end of the month. Nobody knows which account is consuming more, which is sitting on idle, right? So those kind of things will happen. Okay, so highly recommend to add when you get into the real time project. Okay, so that's about the tags. And the all other, I think, pretty much good. So the one is storage browser. Okay, so before I go to storage browser, let me see. There is one more we need to discuss about the storage explorer. All right. So now you can see there's an option to open in Explorer. All right. So what does it mean? So Explorer is another feature that provides Microsoft. So you can see all this your containers file in a browser well. Like for example, if I see this is my Explorer, right? And we all are become familiar with this. It's just an easy way kind of experience the files and folders. For example, if I can open here, I can see the files, and I can go to different folders and files and see the respective files, right? So we are all become a habit of using this Explorer. So similarly, Microsoft also provides a Explorer view to view the all the containers, files, folders in a storage account. Okay, so this is basically an extension you need to download and install in your respective laptop or desktops to access the storage container. So I just downloaded in my laptop. As you can see, this is the Explorer of storage, and you can see where it's very well. The storage account I can attach to it, and you can see the training demo IT, the same one which we created yesterday in our container. You see demo training, right? So you can see the same over here, demo training. And also I have created another one which is output. You can see as an output, you can see what over here. So it's easily drag and drop. You can find, if you go to demo training, there are no files available as of now. I think there is one file is there. Let me see. Yeah, so there are two files are there. You see employee sample CSV as well as info.jpg, right? So it's kind of an easy way of exploring the files and folder. See, at the end of the day, we are dealing with most of the either queue, either tables or file shares. Every type of storage provides the kind of a uh, files and folder kind of a structure, right? So it's an easy to locate through this storage explorer, and it's a very good experience. You can try as well. Okay. So that's about the storage account. And also we discussed the containers, file shares, queues, and tables available within the storage that we discussed very broadly yesterday. And also some of the related networking related, right? So when you will be working in real time, you will be there are a lot of firewalls and virtual networks, private endpoints, right? So these are the jargons here, very important to remember and understand this. Okay, so so every organization will have some kind of firewalls, right? Not everything and anything is available or public. Okay, so the firewall settings enabling either since it's a free, we just enabled all. Otherwise, it's going to be restricted. It's going to be selected virtual networks and IP addresses only. We will allow to access this storage. So when you click on this, you can add the respective virtual networks and subnets. So this is kind of a networking part. Though we will not go in detail, but just a you to remember and just keep the knowledge about this. Okay, and then access keys. Okay, so now somebody asks you, okay, somebody is developing an app and he want to access the storage account from his app, right? So you can give these access keys to access the storage account. So they are masked, but you can get this and you can copy. You can see copy to clipboard, copy this key, and you can share with him so that he can use these keys and access the storage account. Okay, so encryption is another a very good feature in Azure. So as yesterday we discussed about the different benefits of using Azure storage account, like durability, scalability, secure, right? So entire data is going to be secured using the encryption keys, right? So right now we are using Microsoft managed accounts, but if many companies have their own keys as well to manage to keep the encryption. So in that case, you can create customer managed keys, and then you can have encryption, decryption, and all the other information you need to add it. Okay, so Demo purpose we'll just using the Microsoft manager keys, but real time is going to be different. So when you're working in a real time project, if somebody says what encryption and all, it's not going to be a surprise. You should be aware of these things when you're working in cloud based projects. And also we discussed one of the feature is about redundancy, right? So we selected local redundancy, but in case if the situation demands, we in the real time we can choose amongst the available data redundancy options, right? And accordingly you can set up the storage account. Okay, so by default, Microsoft provides so much of data protection and encryption, all those options. Okay, it just for everybody to know and how this works. Okay, some of them are easy to understand, and it's a kind of a easy to remember. But some of the things you need to as a practice, and as you work more and more, you will remember those things. Okay. So the life cycle management, we discussed about that, right? So 30 days, 60 days, and then 180 days. In case the organization demands different life cycles, you can create your own as well. Okay, you can create your rules when the data should move to different tiers, and when the data, what are the different rules organization specific you can apply. So you can apply all over here. Okay, and quickly about
So one question. So the life cycle management is especially about moving the data to the different tiers. Does it mean?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and also the endpoints to access the storage account, right? So hope you ever up what is the meaning of endpoint. So endpoint is basically to access there is a gateway will be created to access the storage account, right? So we have seen this blob storage, we have created training demo, right? So this is available as a service in the over internet. So somebody else can easily use this the URL and embed it into their app development, and they can access the storage account provided by the keys, right? Similarly, the subscription, right? You can see the subscription key also available, and resource IDs, and the respective URLs are available. So this is to access the storage account from multiple um, gateways, I would say, right? Let's say
So
I'm developing a
I'm sorry, I just have a question here. So
mm,
for endpoint is basically will help to communicate privately, right? Using the endpoint means the communication will not go through internet. It will be used gateway as a private communication, right?
absolutely right. For example, you will be accessing the storage account from ADF, ADB, and also so on and so forth, all the across Microsoft provided services, right? So these
Mhm.
endpoints you will share with them. Hey, look, this is the endpoint you need to use, and then when the data comes and goes, so the respective storage going to be used for that the development purpose.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Sir, one small doubt.
yeah.
Sir, nowadays, which cloud storage mostly used present?
So yeah, as I think in the first session also somebody has raised the same question. So right now we have a three service providers: Microsoft, AWS, and GCP, right?
So,
So
which is most useful to get a job, sir?
right, that's what I'm coming to. The market share across all these three, market share of Microsoft is high. Okay, you can Google, and you can try look at the market share. And one of the benefit of Microsoft is it's a very easy to understand, and also it's very intuitive, the user experience and all, and many companies are using because Microsoft also sells this as an extension to their existing customers, like somebody using Outlook and somebody using Microsoft Office, right? So it's a they're leveraging those customers and selling also this cloud service as an extension, and you have a huge market.
Okay.
Okay,
Sir,
but remember one thing is though it helps you see the concepts and foundation remain same across the service providers, right? So you will have in AWS also you will have a storage, and GCP also you have a storage. So the jargons, the foundations remain same. It's just a flavor, and just a kind of a the different way of doing, maybe GCP following different. For example, we are calling this as a storage account containers, right? And in AWS, it's called as a buckets, S3 and buckets, right?
yes.
So the naming conventions are different, and different options may be different, but the foundation, the concepts and foundations remain same across the service providers.
Okay, sir. Sir, Microsoft Azure having any previous work experience to get a job or not?
You can see the
Likely
objective.
apply freshers are eligible or not?
Yeah, you can freshers also eligible. There is no doubt about that. Okay, many companies even asking for it as an entry level data engineer, right? So you will get apply for those entry level jobs. And also after this training you can practice using the free trial, you can practice, and also you can have some kind of do some small projects, and see get the some data and move here and there, and then also you can apply for the relevant. Maybe if somebody is asking 1+ or 2+, you can apply to those jobs as well.
Okay, okay, sir. So basically, I am completed AWS training, so that's why I'm asking. So about Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, likely the names are totally different. So the concept is same. So the total names are different. So
Yeah,
comparison both.
yeah. So that's what it's not name, not just names, but the way they works also different, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah. So it's a AWS may be working differently, Azure is completely different. But the reason why most people stick to Microsoft is their market share is currently is very high. Okay, so if you remember, AWS started long time ago, and they were focusing on the app side, right? The microservices and app development. So those are the services is very good in AWS. But when it comes to data stack, right? So when it comes to data stack, to move the, for example, ADF pipelines and the data bricks. So all these things with Microsoft is most of the customers using by tying with the Microsoft, because the intuitive way of Microsoft dealing with the data stack, and the experience it brings to the developers, it's a very good, and it's easy to grab it also.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you, sir.
yeah. And the other types, there are a lot of monitoring alerts. You can create alerts. So for example, if your storage becoming a full, is maybe the threshold of it's reaching 90-95%, you need to get an alert, right? So those kind of alert mechanism also available. Or if somebody trying to doesn't have access and is trying to access the storage account, right? So those kind of alerts you can set, and accordingly it will the you will be notified in case anything, any abnormalities is coming up, right? And also the logs, which is very important when you work in a real-time project, right? Without log, if somebody says I can't access storage account, or in the storage account is giving an issue, and there may be some network or other related issues to access. So these logs will provide you all the granularity of details, who is accessing, who's doing what, right? And also to give you some kind of a statistics in case of any abnormalities or any wrong access to given to somebody, or somebody is using a wrong way. Okay, so these are the very important things when you work in a real time. Okay, And also there are some of the monitoring all these diagnostic settings, right? And you can get the metrics, right? Which application is using most of the resource, what are the how many requests are coming, and all this stuff in a graphical user interface manner. You can get it, right? You can see right now there is no activity, but you can see at time level which is the peak hours, what is the usage, and normal hours, what is the usage. So all these metrics you can get it. Okay, so that's about storage account. And before moving to um, next step, so we also discussed about in one of the session about the ADF, right? That's part of the training. And we also discussed the scenarios when the ADF um, so what is ADF and what are the different scenarios that we can use. uh, ADF is useful, and why some of the benefits and the offerings we are getting as part of the ADF. Okay, so in today's session, we're going to discuss the pipeline, and pipeline will create a pipeline in a hands-on as well. Okay, so before moving to ADF, are there any questions on the storage?
No question on storage, but you said you will be discussing about storage browser. So do you want to discuss something on storage browser?
Yeah. So as I told you, right, it's a very it's an installable component where the storage you can access in a kind of a browser.
I mean to say the tab on the Microsoft Azure portal, there is a tab called as storage browser, right? You were talking about that one. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's
So
the
here,
same thing. It's the same
okay,
thing.
okay. I
Yeah.
think then you have covered already. You have said that
Yeah.
you have already installed and sure. Okay, then
Yeah.
let's. I think we can go to the slide now. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. So, so the pipelines. So I think we covered already. So it's pipeline is basically the logical grouping of activities to move the data from point A to point B, right? Basically, it's a group of activities that work as a unit to perform certain actions, right? So the entire unit of work we call it as a pipeline. Okay, so either it does executes completely or fails completely. Okay, so now in this example, in the diagram, you can see there are the data coming from blob store and link service. There is a data set and there is a copy activity. So basically the data is moving from point A to point B, which is our SQL server. Okay, so in this entire journey, it's called as the entire unit of work, it's called as a pipeline. Right? Is it clear what is pipeline?
So activity can be n number of, right? Not limited
Yeah.
to the one. Okay.
Right. So activities can have n number of, and even also pipelines also you can create n number based on the need and the use case.
One more thing, you said that pipeline fails, either it executes completely or it fails completely. So means if just suppose maybe just copying activity fails, does it mean the whole pipeline will fail?
Yeah. So if you see, let's assume the same case you mentioned that multiple copy activities, right? So let's say you have a multiple copy activities and you have a out of 5, one is failed, right? So what will happen? The entire pipeline it marks as a failed, and someone has to go and diagnose where what has failed and make it rerun the pipeline to make it success.
Okay. So what happens, like suppose just a curious question, because copy activity is failing, but it's my understanding is a sequential, right? It goes to CSV file, then connect to the link server, then read the data set, and then it copies the data. So because initial 3 steps is not really like rollback not required. But suppose if it fails the table data set, but copy activity is done. So when it fails, does it roll back that activity, or how it works internally?
Correct. So see, copy activity internally depend on link service and data set. Of course, we'll be discussing link service and data sets in a soon we'll be discussing, right?
Okay.
So now when you say copy activity without link service and data set, it doesn't have any value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now when you say link service is failed or CSV data set is failed, that means the entire copy activity itself is failed. So it's not that like, one is failed, one is success. So what will happen to copy activity? It's not going to work that way. Okay. So what we will be doing is we'll be covering the what is link service and what is data set after this slide, and that will give you more clarity for your question. And if still you have question, we'll discuss at the end. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So now the grouping of activity that performs as a unit of work. Okay. So activities represent a processing step in a pipeline. Yes, as you can see, it's one of the step in the pipeline, and there could be many activities in a one pipeline. But without activities, the pipeline doesn't exist. Okay. If nothing is there, then we will not have any pipeline and will not get called as a pipeline. Okay. So now the two important concepts, it's very, very important to understand while creating a pipeline. So the first one is linked service and the second one is data sets. So what is linked service? So linked service is a kind of act as a connection string to access the external data sources, right? So remember, the whole point of pipeline is getting the data from a source and doing some processing and then persisting in a destination, right? So when you pull the data from the source, you need to different connectors, right, to connect to the, whether it's a Salesforce, whether it's a SaaS, whether it's a Oracle. You need those connectors to ADF to connect to those sources, right? So instead of you writing the connectors to the different sources that the organization is working on, so Microsoft itself is a pre-built, there are some 80 plus pre-built connectors are available. Suppose you want to connect to Oracle database, you just the Oracle database connector is available, or you want to connect to a Salesforce application, so the connector is available. Or you want to connect to a blob storage, the connector is available. So you can take care of use those pre-built connectors and then connect to the respective source using the linked service. So that's why it's called a linked service. So it basically links the connection between ADF and other source. Right? Hope it's clear now what is linked service. Any questions on linked service? Because it's very, very important, guys. So without links, you will be referring so many times throughout this training. And of course, when you get into real time also. So it's very important to understand and and nail it down what is linked service. So it's kind of a stamping in your mind. Okay. So moving on to the data set. So once you created a linked service, suppose I connected to a blob storage, or I connect to a, suppose let's say I connect to a Salesforce data store, right? So after that, what I need to do, right? Salesforce data may be having multiple tables, files, and so on and so forth, right? So you need to then you need to mention which data structure that is you wanted to use in your pipeline within the data store, right? The Salesforce or the Blob or Oracle might have multiple data stores, multiple tables, multiple data stores, multiple formats. Out of that, which one are you going to use it? That's where the reference point, right? the reference point to the reference, the data that you wanted to use in copy activity or any activity that is represents the data set.
One question on the data set. So we establish a link server, means my ADF can talk to either one of the service, maybe SQL, Oracle, or whatever we are connecting to, right? So in SQL, like example, if I talk about SQL, in SQL, there are many databases inside many tables, right? So we want to suppose one database and one particular table information we want to retrieve. So that database and the table is called data set or something else called data set?
Correct. So connecting to Oracle is called a linked service, right? Within the Oracle, as you mentioned, you want to access a table or something, right? That called a data set.
Okay.
Right. So Oracle might be having multiple databases, right? One for marketing, one for sales, one for ERP. There will be multiple databases, right? So they are all hosting in same server. So you got established a connection to the server, right? So now in that server you have different databases like as I mentioned, marketing, finance, and all of those stuff, right? So within that you just need to work. You just need to take only marketing related data, right? So that you will define as a data set.
Yeah. Okay. So let me put it this way. Please correct me. My understanding is link service is a tool to connect my one of the source. Is just a tool, but this tool does not tell where, like which database we server. It's just a tool to establish the connection. But when I provide the data set, in the data set, I give the, okay, here is my server name, here is my database name, here is my table name. That information is basically data set information, right?
Absolutely right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so now the relationship between linked service and dataset, so it's kind of a one-to-many, right? Linked services can exist without dataset, but dataset cannot exist without linked service. Okay, so now let's go back and see some how to create a some hands-on to create a linked service. Okay, so right now I am in a portal. Okay, so let's open my demo IDO. It's taking a while because it's a free subscription, right? So it's a least priority. Yeah. Okay, so go to author and monitor, and so you can see I have created a link service to connect to the blob storage which we have created in yesterday's session. Okay, so let's me create another one. See, so whenever I click on link service, there are two available. One is data store or compute. Okay, so which one you want to create a link service, right? So you can see on the data store, either you can connect to marketplace and Oracle and SQL Server and Amazon S3. Let's say you want to pull the data from Amazon S3, right? So you can create this link service, pre-built link service available, and you can pull the data. Or you want to pull the data from Amazon Redshift, right? And or you can see there are some apps also available. App Figures and Apache Impala. It's an open source project, right? And these all are Microsoft provided services: Azure Cosmos database, and NoSQL Cosmos for MongoDB, Cosmos for NoSQL, and Blob storage. So all these are available as a connectors, pre-built connectors. You can see MariaDB, MySQL, Postgres. Okay, so now there are two ways of getting data. Either you pull the data from the respective source, or somebody push the data to the required storage, right? So now blob storage is something that works as a push. If somebody already pushed the data is already available, right? For example, in our case, if you can see the containers we created yesterday. So the container we created yesterday, the data is already available, right? Means somebody has already pushed the data. You see, there is a sample file is there. So means somebody already pushed the data, and we need to use this data for further processing. So in that case, what I will be doing is I will be connecting to a blob storage where my data is already there. Okay, so I will select blob store and click continue. And you will give a name, which is basically the at a real-time project, you have to maintain the proper naming convention to as part of your best practice. Okay, you cannot just use Azure Blob storage, right? So if you want to create another link service on the same storage, you can't create Azure Storage 1, Azure Storage 2. It's very difficult, right? So give proper naming conventions when you work in a real-time project. For example, this is a link service. So it starts with a LS. That means it says it's a link service. And then you give the respective source or the project details, right? So for example, I'm pulling some employee data. What I will do, I will create a link service HR. It's for HR department and then employee, right? So give those proper naming conventions. Okay, so now you can mention what is okay. So employee data from HR, right? Or you're getting from different store, or you're getting from Oracle, let's say that, or you're getting from some other. So you can mention those descriptions. So guys, these are the very helpful to differentiate amongst the other services. Okay, since this is a sample one, it doesn't matter, but if you real time, these are very important. Okay, so now let's see other options available. So what is integration runtime? You can see connect via integration runtime. What is this integration runtime? So this is very important concept to understand. Okay, so let me quickly discuss about integration runtime. So integration runtime is a compute infrastructure used by the Azure Data Factory, right? So what does it mean? Why do we need a compute infrastructure for Azure Data Factory? Can somebody answers?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. So integration runtime is basically the compute infrastructure that required for the Azure Data Factory to execute the pipeline or any stuff, right? So why do we need integration runtime? Why do we need a compute infrastructure in this manner? Why do you need a compute infrastructure?
So suppose if I need to read the data from Oracle database, so it's on-prem, right? So some tool has to read the data. Maybe that's where it comes.
Absolutely, you're right. So if you remember, if you remember this diagram, right? So the data comes from here to here, right? And then the copy activity moves to the destination, right? So in a diagram, it looks like everything on sky, right? But but the underlying, so if you see the data, how the data copies, right? So the data copies from here to here. You need to temporarily store the data in somewhere, right? It cannot happen over the fly that just move the data from here to here, right? You need a compute power. You need a compute powers to process the data and move the data from A to B. So that's where the integration runtime and the compute infrastructure required.
So
Okay,
one
so
question I have on this. So here you said compute power integration, runtime integration you are talking about. Whereas when you were explaining the storage account where you keep the file, that somebody has pushed the file, right? So is there any relation between these two? Like somebody is pushing the file to the storage, and somewhere we are using integration services, runtime integration services to push the data.
Yeah. Let me give an example. That's a good question. Okay, so somebody has put the data in my storage area, right? So let's assume that I got employee ID, name, and salary. Okay, so now employee ID may be 1001, name ABC, salary is 1000, and 1002, name is XYG, and salary is 1500. Okay, so this is data already available in my storage, right? Now I want, maybe I will add one more bonus. Okay, so bonus 5. Okay, so this is my source blob storage, which is already available, this one. Okay, so now I want my target. Okay, so my target is what I want. Again, I want the same stuff. Okay, but I don't want this salary or anything, but I just want a total cost. Hey man. Okay, I don't want this. So what would happen in this case? It would become 1500 and it would become 2300, right? So now this is my source and this is my target. Now I understand. The data is already available. Okay, so I get this data, right? Now where will I make this? How do it become 1500 and 2300? You need to write a logic, right? You need to write a logic. Okay, total cost equal to salary plus bonus. Hey, sorry, right? So this logic needs to be executed, and then it has to be moved to the different format, right? So this logic is going to execute. So this data going to be temporarily persisted in a temporary layer. So this is called a integration runtime. Sorry, compute infrastructure.
So this compute infrastructure will be on Azure or will be on on-prem?
I'm coming to that. Okay. So now this compute infrastructure uses this data and executes all your logic, and then finally push to your target, whether it's a blob storage, a SQL table, whatever it may be, right? So you need an intermediate layer to execute the different logics that are mentioned in your pipeline, right? In this case, it may be just a copy. You might be doing some transformations. You might be doing so many things, right? So you definitely need an intermediate layer to do all the stacks before pushing into the target, right? So that is where this compute infra is required, and that's where it's called an uh, it's called a integration runtime. Okay, so now integration runtime definitely we need. So now if you see different options available. So Azure automatically provides, there is an option called auto resolve integration runtime. That means it's automatically creates a required integration runtime to do this task, and it auto which uses either a VM or something in the background, and it uses. Okay. Now the second option is you can create your own also. You can see. So this is Azure provided. Azure automatically manages this internally, fully managed services and serverless compute it can use, and it can does the job for you. Or as you mentioned, you already, let's say you already have a self-hosted, right? On-prem, you already have resources are available, and you can use that as well as a self-hosted integration runtime. Does that answers your question?
Yeah, I just thank you for answering this part. One more question I have. So when you think we should think of self-hosted and when we should think of Azure one?
Yeah. So let's say you already running some projects in your on-prem, right? And you are using a lift and shift mechanism to move to the cloud, and your organization has decided to move to cloud, right? So in that case, your all the data is everything is available in on-prem, and so in that case, what you can do for a integration runtime, you can use the on-prem hardware. There is no wrong with that. But let's say you have a startup, you just started a startup and you are using cloud. You have started with the cloud. You don't have any on-prem or anything, right? And you don't want to get into that burden of creating on-prem servers and all. In that case, you can use the fully managed serverless compute provided by the Azure.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So now, so that's the importance of integration runtime. Okay. So without integration runtime, you cannot connect to any source or anything. Okay. Now, once that is done, so it asks the authentication type, right? So there are so many authentication types are available. For example, account.
So sorry, one question. So in this case, you selected Azure, right? Just now.
Yeah. So Azure, because this auto resolve integration runtime. That means by default it's in Azure. Azure will take care. Azure will take care of that. I don't want to do anything. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now, how do you connect to that? How do you connect to the source, right? So the available options you have: C, account key, SaaS URL, a service principal, system assign managed identity, so user assign managed identity, right? So these are the available options to connect to the respective sources. Okay. For our use case, we just leave it as is the default account key, right? But when you work with the real-time project, so it's different. Okay. So I would suggest you guys go through and understand what is this SaaS URL, what is service principal. So these are very important concepts. Okay, what is managed identity? So all these are very, very important concepts you to understand and before working on ADF. Okay. Now, okay, so now coming to the account section method, right? So since we are using Azure, let's use the same subscription model which we have free trial. Okay, so you have if you use from subscription, automatically you can select the respective subscription from here. Okay, now which storage account I want to connect, right? So it's you can see the training container which storage account and the container we are using, it automatically appears over here. Okay, so now you see since it's all Azure, the storage also Azure, and the link service also we are creating Azure. So it's automatically the keys and everything automatically loads and it automatically connects to the respective storage account. But If it's, let's say it's in Amazon S3 or in Oracle you're connecting, so you need to manage the connectivity and all manually. Okay. Now, so additional connection properties. Let's see what additional available. Okay. So in case if you want to use a manual connect string and all, you can provide those names. Okay. So let's say you are using a connection a URL, and there is a URL edge available, or in case you want to connect through we discussed it, right? The gateways and all. So those things you can mention those gateways and the value. So the link service automatically uses those property names and the values and to connect to the respective sources.
Would you be doing some sort of demo on this later part, like a gateway one?
Yeah, we will try to do that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So now you can see, so once ready, right? So, okay, let me delete this because I don't want to use anything. Okay. So now once it's available, you just need to test the connection. So it's always best practice to test the connection before creating the link service. You see that the connection is successful. So we are ready to create the link service. Let's create that. You see within seconds it's got created, and you can see the code also that pertaining to the link service. You can see, right, the connection string, the connection default endpoint protocol, which is HTTPS account name and point suffix core and Windows core.windows.net. And also it uses the encrypted credentials. So the credentials, it's automatically encrypted by Azure, and those will be used over here. Okay. So either you do it manually or the link service will do it for you automatically. Okay. So now link service being created. Okay. So the next step is to create a data set, right? So let's go to Azure and create a data set. Okay.
Have you explained this panel already? Because previous session I was not there. So this panel, like here, pipeline, data change, capture, data set, this panel has been explained already.
Yeah, so it's already covered as part of, I think, the first session, day one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sure. I'll go through.
You can
I'll
go through that.
them later.
Yeah. Okay, so the data set we need to create. So what kind of data set are we expecting? So we are creating a data set for Azure Blob Storage. Okay. So within Azure data storage, there may be multiple, right? The multiple, you have an Excel, you have a JSON, you have an ORC, you have a comma delimited. There are multiple data sets are available, XML, Parquet, right? So which point of reference you are trying to create using this for this data sets? So we are interested into CSV format. So just select the CSV format. But in real-time project, if other sources are available, you need to select the respective sources, right? Remember, the data set is just a reference point to the respective data. Okay. So yeah, just select the reference and just click on OK. And as usual, you provide the name. Okay. So data set for employee data, which is CSV format. Okay. Now, once you create the data set, it's mandatory. You remember the asterisk here. It's mandatory to select a link service. So without link service, you cannot create a data set. But there you can create a link service and may not be associated with any data sets. That's okay. Maybe later point of time you want to add more data sets to the link service. But when you're creating a data set, it's mandatory to create a link service. Okay, so the same one which we created in our previous example, just we are using that one. And then you can, so now if you, the link service is already created, right? So you can browse that. You can see browse. So we have demo training, right? So within the demo training, which file you want to create. So I give employee sample. Okay, so now you see this data set connects to the link service for the employee data set, and within the link service, it automatically connects to the respective source, and then gets the browse. You can browse through and you can mention the file you want to bring it from the source. Okay, so it's very important to understand, guys. All right, so as you can see, the dataset employee CSV has been created. Okay, so now once it created, you can see different options are available. The default options are available here. Okay, so you can right now you can click and you can preview the data also. See, I have created 2 rows of data, so you can preview the data also here. Since I haven't mentioned any, let me show you that in the storage. So this is my data. Okay. Yeah, so this is my data. You can see there are no headers, nothing, just plain simple text, right? So what I in this case Azure has done is when we preview it here, since there is no columns been mentioned, it's automatically assign the columns like property 0, property 1, property 2, like this, as you can see.
So if we want to change, like data has been exported, so think of it has been 100K rows exported now. So can we change the column property now?
Yeah, everything is possible. There is nothing you can, okay. Now first row as header, if you can see, right? So let's say if you have a first row, if I mention first row employee name, like I mentioned here, right? Employee ID name, this is the first row, right? But these are the headers and this is the data. So if you want to exclude the first row, you just declare first row as a header, and so it will ignore the first row. Okay, and in case of any special characters, right? Since in the real time you will get some special characters, like you want to escape those characters, so you can mention that also here, like either a special character, either by default it's // but if the file format depends on the file format, if there are any special characters you can use as well, right? So the column delimiter, see, it's a CSV, so it's a comma, but there could be CSV files with the pipe delimiter as well, right? There could be CSV files with the tab delimiter as well. So those things you can set it out and change the default behavior, right? So encoding, let's say you are getting a data from some Western countries, right? So what kind of encoding they follows, right? You can set those encoding also. For example, it's a default UTF-8, you can set it 7, and there are so many encoding options are available for you to take a look. Okay, and compression. Right now we don't have any compression, but let's say it's a ggip or zip folder. So if you're getting a data through a zip file, right? So you can mention the compression type also, so that it automatically decompress and use the file. So you need not do anything manually.
So means if data is in, suppose
we use WinZip, right? That's the most common format we use for data compression if it is a CSV file. So in that case, we can no need to extract the data from CSV file. We can simply just define the path like compression type here, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. And the second one is schema. Right now, we no need to create any schema and all. Okay. This just a sample CSV data. But if you want to export, if you want to move the data from a blob storage to a SQL database, you need a schema, right? So it automatically creates the schema, and the schema you can modify over here. Okay. And optionally, there is a parameters. You can create the parameters as well, but at this point, it is not applicable. So we won't create any parameters. Okay. So now once this is done, so the data service is available, as you can see. Okay. So just publish these changes. Okay. So now, so you can see it's available permanently, right? So even if I close, it's available. So what is publishing? What are the different options available in publishing? As you can see, you can publish at data factory level, or you can create a Git repository code that the organization follows, right? So when you're working with a organization, um, there must be some source code management repository they will be using. Either it's a GitHub or Bitbucket or anything that organization follows. Okay, so you can set up that if the organization using, or otherwise it just the changes are only pertaining to the your individuals. So somebody in a team, like let's assume that we are about 6 members, right? So 6 member, all working as a team, right? And I want to make some changes, and my changes are depending on your changes, and your changes are depending on somebody else changes. So how do we collaborate and how do you coordinate if you're working in the same project, right? So that's where the source control will come into picture. So once you push the changes to the repository, everybody can see everyone's changes. If I am making a changes, you can see and you can make on top of my change, and you are making some changes and some other person also can see and work on top of your changes. Otherwise, if you don't have a repository, it's kind of a silos. You cannot see what I am doing, and other person also cannot see what you are doing. Okay, that's not an ideal situation in a real-time project. Okay, so in one of the session we'll be cover how to set up this GitHub repository also. Okay, so don't worry about that. So now we have created a link service as well as a data set being created. Okay, so now let's create a pipeline. So I want to copy data. So copy data.
One question: do you have any demo on the repository creating, like setup code repository? Because it's something which I am always curious to know, because that's not my area. So I thought, oh, if you will be showing in the demo, that will be really helpful to understand how it works.
Yeah, it's part of the course syllabus. Okay, if you go through the syllabus, there is a Git repository session as well. Okay, we'll cover
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now let's create a pipeline to move the data. Okay, so I created a just activities. See, there are so many activities, so you don't know where the copies exist. You just type the copy, it will come the respective option. So just drag and drop. Now to create a copy, you need to provide the necessary information. So again, it's a copy data. So you can give CD and employee, right? Employee information you're copying. That's the employee, and you mention copying that from a blob storage. Okay. Now let's see the timeout. So the timeout is given 12 hours. By default, it's a 12 hours of timeout. That means when you run the pipeline keep continuously run for 12 hours, right? And even after 12 hours also, still your pipeline is running and not able to copy the data, then the pipeline will fail. Is it clear?
Yes, it is clear.
Yeah. So let's assume that you're copying 1 billion records, right? So billion records, how long it takes? It should be less than 12 hours. Let's assume that you want to run it 24 hours. Let's assume that you say that, oh, no, it might take 24 hours also. So you can modify this to 24. You can see it. Okay, so it's going to be your day, right? So it's going to be 1 day. Or let's say you want to run it 20 hours. Right? So you can increase the timeout. So, but within the timeout limit, if the operation didn't complete, it will fail. Okay, so that's one thing to note it down. Now, what would happen if you, let's say it failed. There was some network issue, there is something happening, it's failed, right? So what would it happen? You can retry. So you can mention that you can as many times as you can retry. By default is 0, but you can set to retry. Let's see, you want to retry again. You can, so it automatically retries after the certain interval. For example, after 30 seconds, it automatically retries. Okay, so those settings we can do as well. We can increase this set as this default as well. For example, this is in seconds. So you want to run after 10 minutes, you want to retry again, or after 5 minutes, you want to retry again. So you can just give in 300 seconds, and after 5 minutes, the pipeline automatically retries to copy the data. Okay, so in real time, how it works is, let's say you have agreed, the data provider has agreed to provide the data by 9 a.m. Guys, can you go on mute, please? Okay, so the data provider has agreed to provide the data by 9 a.m. right? So you have scheduled the pipeline to run 9 a.m. right? But he also mentioned that, hey, look, I am committing to schedule at 9 a.m. But there may, in some cases, there may be a chance that there is a 5 to 10 minutes of delay can happen, but you can retry after every 5 minutes. Okay, till 9:30 you can retry. So, so in those cases, it's the timeout and the retry options, retry interval is very, very important. Okay. So now, after that, we need to provide a source data sets, right? You remember we have created a source and target one, right? So we need to select which is my source data set, all right? And then you can see preview the data. Okay. So now we need to also provide sync. So sync is nothing but your where you wanted to, what is your target? Okay, so what is your target? That is what the sync is coming to picture. So in our case, what we'll be doing is our target is our target is output. Okay, so let me delete this one, which I already have. Okay, so what are we doing in this demo is, we have a file in demo training. Okay, and we are trying to move the data from this we are trying to move the employee sample data from this container to the output output folder. Okay, using a pipeline. Okay, so now let's go to okay, so our again okay, so you can open and see it's a it goes to the output folder, right? Right now there is nothing is available, so you cannot preview the data. Okay, so did you guys understand what is source and sink? It's very important, guys. Okay, so now here also we have some of the available, some of the options. You can see copy behavior, right? Merge files, preserve hierarchy, and flatten hierarchy. So all these stuff are available, but for this example, it will not applicable, but we'll be discussing in future classes all those stuff. Okay, and how many maximum concurrent connections I can establish? What is the block size, right? How much of data I can transfer in one go, right? So all these things you can use. And in case of it's a target database, I can map over here. So for example, I didn't mention any header, right? So what is my mapping? What is my first column mapping to target, whether it's employee ID, employee name, or employee salary? What are those mappings I can define here as well? Okay, and the rest of things is by default settings. Okay, that's depending on the size of data you're moving and the costs associated with that. Okay, so let's quickly do that. Okay, so let's quickly validate this one. Okay, so it's saying that delivery is a folder, which is okay. So what it means is, see, I have in my container, I have two files. You see, one is sample CSV and another one info.jpg. So when I validate, when I got an error saying that since I have chosen a file path in dataset, so there are two files are available. So pipeline has confused which file to use. Right. So in that case, what it shows is I can use the wildcard file path, which means I can mention which file I wanted. For example, I want to process CSV. So I can give start.csv. So what will happen in that case? It just only look for the CSV file.
So we can specifically give the file name also, right? Because
right, we can give the, if there is one file, you can give one just file name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So suppose what happens if all my files are CSV, but few files are specific to this pipeline activity, then are we going to keep it in a separate folder to isolate, or is there any other way to, like from the file naming convention, we can identify something?
Correct. So there are ways to do that. There is a dynamic content. You can see that, right? There is a dynamic content you can add. There are multiple ways of doing things. Okay. Yeah. So now if you validate it, you can see it's validated. The pipeline is validated, and let's debug and run. So first it goes to queue, and then it will get the necessary resources to execute the pipeline. For example, runtime and everything, and then executes, right? So if you see, it took around 13 seconds. Okay, and it's a very good, you can see how this has happened. You can see here the details. So what had happened, it took the data from Azure blob storage that we have defined, and it successfully moved to again Azure storage, right? Because that is what our source and target, right? And how many? It's 30 bytes of data. One file it got read, and one file it got written. Okay. And what is the copy duration? It's just 8 seconds. Okay. And you can see within the 8 seconds what and all happened. So the pipeline was in queue for almost 4 seconds, and then it transferred the respective to transfer just took 1 second. Okay, so you can see all the things and the start time and how many data units it's consumed, right? And how many parallel copies it make, and what was the total duration, right? So all the details you can see it over here. All right. So now let's see if the data really copies to the output folder or not. You can see the employee sample has been copied over here. Right. So that's about the first exercise. This is the first exercise in terms of how a pipeline created, what are the necessary activities required for the pipeline, and we also executed the pipeline to move the simple use case to create a simple pipeline and to move the data from one folder to another folder within the blob storage. Okay, so that's all about for today's session, guys. So in case of any questions, we can quickly discuss.
I think no question. Only thing I have a request. When this video will be available to go through again? Because I want to do the demo.
Yeah, I'll maybe in a couple of hours it will be available.
Okay, just post in the group once it has been available. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, so with this, I think the free classes that today is the third free class, and the free classes are ends with today, and from tomorrow onwards it's going to be paid. So you please get in touch with. Let me give the number. So let's get in touch with Madhu. Okay, in case of if you have any questions about the trainings, fee structure, and placements assistance, and any interview related stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to touch with Madhu, and I will just post the his message, his number once again to you all, so that you can get in contact with him.
I have one question. Is it Madhu who is speaking, or is it Madhu who is coordinating?
Madhu is coordinating.
Acha, may I know your name?
Yeah, my name is Purushottam.
Okay, thanks, Purushottam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is Madhu's number. You feel free to get in touch with him in case of if you have any questions. Okay. So yeah. So I think with that we can.